It only came from like someone actually pointing out my flaws that I realized, you know what, why am I here? What do I want to do this for? Do I just want to make money or do I want to be the best at something? And then I just very quickly changed and developed into a sales person to a sales leader.
That's very profound indeed. So that shift happened. And then once you made that shift, it led you to even greater things.
So the difference between a leader and a manager quickly was shown to me. And I would say the first time I led a sales team was 2017, but the first time I learned to lead a good sales team was in 2018.
That's really key what you mentioned there about that leadership development. Usman Kayani, he's founder of Guided Growth, go-to partner for 7- and 8-figure businesses looking to scale their sales team. So Usman's helped generate over $50 million in sales, and he's the guy that founders call when their sales team isn't performing and their culture's falling apart. Hey everybody, welcome to the Making Millions podcast. If you're new here, my name is Jennifer Waters, and I've grown a portfolio of businesses past 3 million a year. The goal now is 20 million and beyond. And the Making Millions podcast is where I bring on people who are doing the same thing. They're building, they're scaling, they're leading businesses that are actually generating millions of dollars. And today I'm joined by Usman Kayani. So Usman, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So you've built sales teams and generated over 50 million in revenue. Take me back. How did you get into sales in the first place?
I was that typical kid that grew up with immigrant parents and didn't have a lot of opportunity. But the opportunity I did have was like just that optimistic kid that would just be a bit of a chancer in every way. Eventually, one of the first jobs I got was a waiter in a restaurant. And then I remember being the waiter who got the most tips because I was the most chatty. Then when I got my first job, it was a call center job. And all I was doing was just selling all day using my voice. And very quickly I learned I can persuade people to give me thousands of dollars, thousands of pounds on a phone call, on a Zoom call. And once I realized that's just with your words, it just changed how I see everything. So that was at an early stage, I realized how important sales was.
Wow, that's really inspirational. So I'm sure you probably had a chip on your shoulder. I mean, I remember one of the reasons why I was so motivated to move forward in my own business was because we had this passion for teaching martial arts, but the business wasn't actually making money. And we came to the point where we were going to shut it down. And I was like, I just didn't want to shut it down. So I learned marketing and systems and sales and applied it to business. Was there a moment for you where you just decided to go all in on sales?
I think when I was 24, I got a job at a big gym chain in the UK. It's called Virgin Active. And when I got a job there, I was a sales consultant. And I remember when I was there for the first month or two, I was the typical salesperson in the beginning. This is going back 10 years, where I would make sales without trying, so I wouldn't really try. I was that typical employee that everyone would say, he's not really trying, but he's still good. And eventually, one day, the manager sat me down and said, I just don't want you here because you don't try. You don't give off the energy. You're not a good cultural fit for us. And I had this chip on my shoulder, which is, but I'm making sales. And then when I realized that if I change my attitude, I don't just need to be mediocre. I can be better than mediocre. I can be amazing. And I think it was just that one talk that someone had with me. And then it just changed my mindset. And I instantly thought, I can work hard and I can just put in the graft, like we say in the UK, not probably a word you would use. And I can truly, if I have, like, I don't use the word mindset. Mindset is a word where it's just fluff. But I knew if I just changed the way I think and changed the way I believe on just think about things, I knew I could be great. And then I realized very quickly, I wanted to just be appreciated and respected. And it wasn't just commission. So then when it only came from like someone actually pointing out my flaws that I realized, you know what, why am I here? What do I want to do this for? Do I just want to make money or do I want to be the best at something? And then I just very quickly changed and developed into a sales person to a sales leader.
That's very profound indeed. So that shift happened. And then once you made that shift, it led you to even greater things. So your sales teams, like when was the first time that you actually developed out a sales team, and what did you get wrong? What did you get right?
So don't know if anyone on here, any listeners have had a job, they worked for it, but never got the promotion. In 2017, I was managing my first sales team, but I was the salesperson that was told, just manage the team and you'll get a promotion. I don't know if you've ever been in that position before where you're promised this job. So the first time I was led to manage a team, I wasn't actually paid for it. And I truly believe in working for the job that you want, not the job you have. And now I believe in building the company that I want, not to have. So it changed over the last years. And now, when I was training and building the sales team, there was all these personalities. There was my emotional intelligence was quite low. So the two girls that I was managing on the team, I didn't really know how to manage women because I would just talk to them like assertively, like, why are you not doing this? And then
Right.
the guy on the team, I would talk to him in a way which was like, how come you can't sell the way I can? Why is it so much harder for you? You're not trying. So the first time I was managing the team, this is going back in early 2017, I wasn't the best. I wasn't a good sales leader. But then by the time I actually managed and my own team and got the promotion, I leveled up and I researched and I got developed and I got a good mentor as well. This is in 2018 where now I could truly manage a sales team and understand how to take care of people. I learned how to give before asking. I learned how to show and not tell. So the difference between a leader and a manager quickly was shown to me. And I would say the first time I led a sales team was 2017, but the first time I learned to lead a good sales team was in 2018.
That's really key what you mentioned there about that leadership development. And I remember a similar shift in mindset. Like we burned through so many employees in my brick and mortar business. We just burned through so many because we just didn't understand how to communicate with people. And you mentioned emotional intelligence. A lot of people don't realize how pivotal that is and the direct correlation between emotional intelligence and the amount of revenue that you can generate in your business. You're working with 7 and 8 figure founders and people, trying to hit 7 figures. Is that a component that you usually have to explain in more detail to people so they can hit those
It
high
so
revenue?
is. Honestly, you have social intelligence and emotional intelligence. And how I define emotional intelligence is how I'm making somebody else feel when I'm talking to them. I
Mm,
should know the emotions that they're going through whilst I'm talking. So let's say I'm talking to a sales rep right now and I'm just telling them how good they're doing, not even how bad. I should know, am I actually making that person feel good with the words I'm using? That's emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is also where I'm speaking to a sales rep or a sales manager or a sales leader or any role, and I know that they could be hurting or problematic in some areas without them even saying it. Reading their body language, reading the way they're like how they talk, how their tonality is. That's emotional intelligence. Reading between the lines is emotional intelligence. So it's just about knowing how you're making someone feel without asking them.
yeah, and that's almost harkens back to John Maxwell. I don't know if you've ever read any of his
Yeah, yeah,
leadership.
I love some of his leadership works. Fruitable Rules of Leadership. Yeah, I love John Maxwell's work.
Yeah, and he talks a lot about that. My dad is a certified Maxwell leadership coach, and so he's taken us through a lot of these trainings, and it really helped transform our business. Just getting that thought process of how you can serve your team and serving them through their the words that you're using.
Yeah.
In some of your videos that I've seen, you talk a lot about the emotional wall. Like you mentioned, people avoiding work or avoiding hard conversations or things because they've hit a wall. Explain how breaking through that or maybe even helping your team break through that will help you overall.
Yeah, so in terms of like, let's keep it in context of managing a sales team. So if you're managing a sales team and a task needs to be done, let's say in this scenario, you asked your salesperson to get 50 sales and bring in a certain amount of revenue, and it's not done. One thing is, have they not tried? Is it because they're not doing enough? And the other thing is there something blocking them? Is there something emotionally stopping that person from succeeding? It could be they don't know how to do the job, and that's a simple. But let's say they have something on their part. There's something going on outside of work. There's something going on internally at work. They are battling something in their mind. If we don't remove those barriers for them and those obstacles, they can't do the job for us. And our job as leaders is not just to tell people what to do, it's to remove the obstacles, whether it's emotional or physical, out of their way so they can succeed. Because them succeeding is you succeeding. And when you think about it in a very simplistic way, if I give 3 times and I ask once, that's how I will truly win. And if I treat my staff that way and I treat my team that way, where I give to them 3 times and I develop them way more than I ask for things, they will break through any wall.
Yeah, huge, huge. And you also, I've heard you talk a lot about rewiring the brain and rewiring dopamine.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Like, how does it drive performance for sales?
So, just in a life context, if you think about everything that we are emotional beings. So, we are beings that just drive upon these chemical reactions that happen in our brain: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. And if I want to make someone feel good, I think about how do I elicit dopamine in their brain? What things do I say? What things do I do? And if I want a team to perform, and I see it as if I keep dopamine high in this team, they will perform. And a dopamine, like where you're going to take dopamine away, there's times where you need to remove it. Like when it comes to focus, my Instagram feed will give me dopamine. So what do? I remove dopamine by turning my iPhone into a black and white grayscale mode, or I will remove Instagram. So there's times where you understand dopamine in a way which is like how it benefits you and how it serves you and how it doesn't serve you. So I just see us as emotional beings of like chemical reactions. And then how do we treat each other with chemical reactions and drive high performance? My main thing is high performance. But then how do we lead our teams knowing the emotions that we release for them?
I love that. I love that. One of my friends from the martial arts world, her name is Melody Johnson, and she specifically works with studio owners on how to develop emotional IQ in the way that they teach children to interact with them, specifically around some of these dopamine drivers and the serotonin, like what you were just talking about. And I think with kids in particular, being able to teach them, you learn a lot because they don't have all these barriers that maybe an adult would have, that would prevent them from reacting emotionally. Most of the times, kids act very emotionally. And I've also found that when it comes to sales, this is one of the highest levels of emotion that someone is going to deal with. But when it comes to money, it's money and family, right? If you mess with either two of those things, then you mess with a lot in a person's life, right? So how do you communicate that level of importance to someone who may not have as much experience in sales? And maybe they're a brand new sales team member and you've got, you're a leader trying to lead them and they just don't get how important it is for the prospects that they're dealing with.
I think the number one thing that we can teach people is good questioning. So someone can ask good questions, they just think you care. So it's not even learning the product, it's learning anything else. The first thing is being genuinely curious and learning and asking good questions. And if you ask good questions, usually every salesperson will make good sales. Usually, when a salesperson isn't making sales or a sales leader isn't leading their team, it's just because there's too much assumption happening more than questions. And it goes back to emotional intelligence again, assuming someone is doing or saying something that they're not. So just ask questions. And the more questions you ask, the more clarity you gain.
So for you, what would you say is a high performance sales team? Like what does that actually look like in your world?
Yeah, so if I defined culture as how people behave when I'm not there, so when the leader is not there, how do they behave? That's culture. And high performance is if the CEO or the manager was not there and did not message in, does the effort level and does the KPIs drop whilst that person isn't there? So that's one way to measure it. And high performance is also, in a nuanced way, if a salesperson is giving you projections on how much they're going to get that day, how many deals they're going to close, do they close those deals what they said they're going to do? High performance is also in the way of, do they show up to every morning meeting with a good amount of energy? High performance is also, are they coming to your one-to-ones that you have registered every week with their document filled out and prepared to talk about issues that they want to improve on? So high performance isn't just going as fast as hard as possible. It's everything from organization to thinking and believing in yourself. High performance is just the culture and it's just how people believe and how people behave whilst you're not there.
Yeah, I think you were recently at the admin mastermind, right? And you were talking through this maybe with one of the people. I think they were trying to get that high performance and really driving it. What do you think are some mistakes that founders make when they're trying to drive that high performance culture?
Well, they push high performance without trust. So I talk about like a graph on the left hand side, if you was to put trust, and on the bottom of the graph, you was to put performance. Most founders just want performance. They're like, no, just do more, just get this deal, get this over the line. And then the trust is low. And if you think about someone who's high performance, low trust, you define that person as, yes, they're going to be really good at the job, but I really wouldn't trust them with my money. Or I wouldn't trust them with my family. And then if you said someone who's high trust and low performance, there's someone who, yeah, I could definitely go to dinner with them. I'd invite them over to my home and they could have dinner with my family, but they're not really going to do the job properly. They're not really good at work. So you think about trust and then performance, and then you want to be able to put that in a space where it's like high trust, high performance, which is your A players.
I love that. I love that. What about does skill play into that, like having to develop that skill out of the sales team?
Yeah.
I think people stumble around trying to develop sales skill, especially if they're not as good at sales. Like if they're a founder and they're not as good at sales. So what would your recommendations be there?
So is this for a founder who's not really good at sales?
Yeah.
So you do get technical founders or you get
Mhm.
sales founders. Not every founder is going to be sales focused. And a lot of founders that come to us are always great at sales, but not great at sales management. And some are great at sales, the technical part of sales, sorry, the technical part of their business and operators, but they're not salespeople. And
Yeah.
they all can sell. It's just how you frame selling. If you think about it this way, when you were a child and you were asking your parents for some money, you were selling it the idea of them giving you money. So you wouldn't say to your mom, "Can I get $5?" You would say, "Hey mom, can I get $5 because I really want to do this, and now I promise I'll do this, and I promise I'll do that." You've always been selling and persuading. It's not new. It's just when we think about our business, we seem to blur it and we start to put emotion behind it. And then we start to give away commission breath to everyone that speaks to us.
Mm,
So it's more about like how you see the sale. It's just like just persuading and influencing someone to be able to do the thing that you know will genuinely benefit them.
I love that. When it comes to something that I've heard you say before, you were saying if your brand was stronger, that the sales appointments that were booked wouldn't dare to cancel. Are you establishing and helping sales founders create better brands through the way that they're approaching sales? Does that tie in to get that person to show?
Yeah, so look, we're not someone who teaches how to make better Instagram posts, but how can we improve a founder's brand? Well, it's selling with integrity. If your sales team is built to sell with integrity, even when someone doesn't buy off the phone, they don't come off the phone and hate your business. So
Mm,
brand isn't just your marketing. That is majority of it. How you actually come across and how people put associations to towards your business. But how your sales team matches your brand, how they're trained towards your brand, and how it links to the delivery system. That's all branding. And product-led growth, which is a lot very much in SaaS more than
yeah,
info, more than product-led growth, comes really from giving everyone an amazing experience, giving them exactly what they paid for. And
sure.
I just like that mindset of like selling with integrity, selling in a way that people know that the thing that you're promising them is what they're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure something that is so important, especially in the agency space where so many people are just out for that quick buck and, they're not actually fulfilling on the promises. I mean, I'm a huge believer in investing into mentorship, into programs, into elevating myself. I've been doing it since I was 18 years old, but there's been programs I've bought that have not fulfilled on that. And I would never recommend them again. How do you think someone can set the right frame for prospects to overcome that? Because at this point, the market in the online space is very saturated. There's a lot of people coming in that have been burned. So, how can a sales leader help their sales team to separate and be someone that is trustworthy?
So there's two things that I do in our morning meetings with our sales teams. One is war stories, where we share a story about how we closed the client and got them over the line. And
Mm,
the other one is we get clients to jump into our morning meetings. So think about a client that's achieved great success in your program. We'll invite that client to a Monday meeting and say, hey, can we just spare 10 minutes and just talk to our sales team about how you've benefited from our program? And they will come in and they'll tell the sales team, this is someone they've paid. They'll tell your sales team how much they've loved the program and how they've benefited and how their business has grown. And this is how you truly indoctrinate your salespeople into believing about the product. Because if your salespeople believe in what they sell, they will sell differently. And this is why you can't break that gap between your customers and your clients to your sales team. The more that you can show them how much their work is doing good, the more that they will believe in selling. When it comes to objection handling, they won't say, no worries, think about it later. They'll say, no, you have to buy this.
yeah.
John bought this last week and he came to our sales meeting last week to tell us how good it is. So the belief in the words is just so different.
Wow, I've never heard of somebody bringing in clients to their sales meeting, only pulling like client testimonials. Was this something that you implemented and were afraid to implement? Like, what if the person comes on and it doesn't say everything you want them to?
If your customers are raving fans of you, you're not afraid to put them anywhere. One of the ways I've grown my business is I've gone to a lot of masterminds.
Mm,
And the first mastermind I went to, I didn't have any clients, but people recognized I had a great skill for what I do in sales leadership, sales management. And they started working with me and they bought from my program. They spent a lot of money with us in those masterminds. Then the next mastermind I went to, those same clients were there And then they did the selling for me at the mastermind, because they would say to everyone, with Usman's help, with the help of his company, we've grown our sales. And if your customers do your selling for you, you don't have to do it.
That's profound. Very profound indeed. And when it comes to getting sales across the finish line, I know a ton of people, even us in the past, before we started really focusing on this, we're having a huge issue with getting people just to show up. And that's the first key. You know, you could have a great sales process, but if you can't actually get them to show to the call, it doesn't matter. So for you, what are some things that people need to install or things they need to do in order to actually get people to show up to these calls?
Yeah, so the few easy wins on short break are when an appointment setter is booking the call, they ask the person on the call, can you check you've got the invite in your junk box or your email box? Can you accept it for me? Great. Are you going to be available at that time? And you're going to be on your computer, or you're going to be on the phone call if it's a phone call. So getting them to accept the invite is one step ahead. And the next thing is having the salesperson reach out before the appointment and just confirming that they've come through and they know what to expect on the call. And then 3 hours before the appointment, having either your salesperson call or in the morning of having them call. So these are just small touch points you can add. Around this, you've got your email sequences, you've got your videos, you've got everything else around it to create a perfect experience. Like if you have an issue with show rate in your business, Jennifer, I'm more than happy to actually drill into it and say, are you doing this? What's the show rate? Have you tried this? And I can give you
Yeah.
very specific answers. Those simple wins are usually the easy ones.
That's phenomenal. I think that too many people can rely on just email sequences to
Yeah.
try and get someone to show, but you know, I know from experience you're not going to get a huge open rate on every single email. Whereas just making that personal touch, like what you just mentioned, that can get somebody to actually go, oh, wait, this isn't a robot. This is somebody who actually cares.
They're honestly just small little wins. Looking at your clients, do they use WhatsApp? Could you add a WhatsApp automation in there? Just sometimes just doing the unscalable things will massively help your show rate. You'll see sales reps with hardly any pipeline, any diary, an empty calendar. And then when they get the one appointment in there, it doesn't show up. Well, you only had one appointment. You could have added them on LinkedIn. You could have messaged them on Instagram. You could have done 1,000 things to get them to show up, but you just sat there and waited for them to not show up.
So do you think that it's very important to reach out and have touch points across channels?
100%, not only because we don't know what platforms they prefer using, so let's just be everywhere, but also the more omnipresent you are online, the more people will trust you. If you go on my LinkedIn, if you go on my YouTube, if you go on my, even though I don't use TikTok, it's there. If you go on my Instagram, if you go on our email list, it's all synced to one brand. So wherever you look, it's the same. Therefore, if someone ever feels skeptical about us, they can check everything and then feel reassured.
I think that is crucial. And that's been a huge part of the growth process that I took my brick and mortar business through was being omnipresent. It's a little different when you're in person because you're trying to create all these different touch points in the community and online and in person. And then applying those same touch points. It's very interesting and unique how you're doing that and how you're teaching that to people as well. Let's shift gears a little bit. When it comes to you and some of the things that you've had to deal with building your own business, I've noticed that you've been documenting not just the highlight reels, but you've been documenting lost deals, or you've even posted being in the UK and dealing with Eastern Standard Time. You're staying up until 2, 3, 4 a.m. in the morning just to close these deals. Why are you showing all of that? Why is that so important to you to show that side?
Because if I wanted to hide it. And I realized I wanted to grow a personal brand, but then I was scared to be personal. And everyone talks about personal brand, but then they just show the highlight reel. And I just knew that, like, I'm a flawed person. I don't close every sales call. I don't win every deal. I'm not always feeling amazing. But then if I'm going to attract the right business owners, if I'm going to attract the right CEOs, all of our CEOs are between 1 and 20 million. And if I'm going to attract those people, they want to work with a human. They don't want to work with someone who looks amazing. And in my experience, every influencer who's worked with us, who's been the Fugazi influencer, who's just shown cars and watches and has shown a lifestyle which they don't truly live, and they don't have the money and they just fake it, they're the business owners that we want to avoid. We don't want to work with those people. They're not our people. The people we want to work with have high integrity, high ambition, great values, great principles. And I know if I show that for myself, I will attract those people. I don't want that influencer that just shows a Rolex but doesn't actually have any money. I just want the right people. So what do I need to do? I need to show myself truly.
Yeah. That's a huge difference in building content that is designed to build trust in that relationship versus building content that's just attention grabbing. Was there a shift in strategy that happened for you at a certain point, or you just came into this personal branding with that idea?
Well, I don't feel like I've grown a big personal brand yet. Although my brand does very well off a small IG YouTube following, we have a big business behind it. And I think people recognize that it's a real business. It's not a massive brand. So I think if I'm really honest, I'd rather give advice on how I've grown a personal brand once I've done it. Because if I start giving advice now on my personal brand and all this stuff I'm doing, I still feel like we've not accomplished a certain amount of respectable size. And like I've really become strict on myself on saying, I will only give advice on the things I've done. I have
Mm.
theories and I feel like it will work, but I believe people only believe you once you can prove it. And everything that I want to share online is about, I've proven it, now I want to share it.
Is a sign of true integrity. I always tell my clients, hey, this is what we're doing in our business. This is how we're doing things right now. I'm going to test this theory. I'll get back to you in 3 to 6 months. You can try it if you want right now, but it's not something I would recommend doing until I have the proof. And that is a huge difference. It's quite lacking, I think, in the online space, because maybe it works once for somebody and then they go on and they're like, oh, I just tried this brand new funnel. And you see it all the time. People start these funnels, they do them for 3 to 4 months, then they abandon them because they didn't work. But then meanwhile, they've told everybody else to go and do these exact same things.
Yeah. 3 months ago, by the way, I made a decision to change my social media, especially Instagram, from revenue focused to brand focused.
Mm.
Revenue focus is where I'm giving CTAs all the time saying, buy this, I've got this offer. And because I want the money, I'm not gonna lie, I want the money today. But I realize if I delay it and I never promote anything and I just share about myself and I just share about our company, what we're doing and how we're growing, it will eventually come 3 to 5 years, but it will come 10 times more. So this is why there's no CTAs. I'm not selling anything in my IG. I interact with my audience. And I think that's also why I've been making money, but also I've not sold anything. I've not actively promoted anything on my Instagram, but people want to work with us. And I believe I just don't want to squeeze all of the value out of my audience or keep asking them
Yeah.
to buy something. If I just build for 3 to 5 years, the reputation of a good brand will bring in more money.
Very, very important indeed. And when it comes for you, it seems like from what I've seen on some of your content that a lot of your growth is also coming from masterminds. You mentioned being at masterminds. So what's your approach to building relationships in that type of environment, that type of space?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing I get asked, which people say is my biggest skill, which I think it has become a biggest skill, which is networking. And networking is such a fluff word, which is like you're going in and shaking hands with strangers and what happens. My skill is I can go anywhere in the world and I can find the people that are influential and I can befriend them and I can provide them value. And I go to masterminds and I sit in a mastermind full of 7 and 8 figure business owners, and I will do nothing but provide value. And I'd provide so much value and so much insight in how they can grow their business. They will all come to me and ask me for my support because I've given. And how can I ask people to pay me for things and buy my services if I've not given first? So I just find that's the best way for me. Like this year, that next month, I'm planning on going to Austin. And I've never been to Austin. I don't know anything about it. I don't even know anyone there. But I'm going to take my videographer with me. I'm just going to vlog. Can I go to a city and network and find entrepreneurs between $1 and $30 million? And how do I befriend them? How do I grow my business there? How do I sell to them? And how do I show every part of it as well?
That's powerful. You'll have to let me know how that goes. I love that idea.
It'll be vlogged. It'll all be on the vlog.
I love it. I love it. So, what's one belief that you've had to build that has generated you millions of dollars? Like, what belief would that be?
I think it's more self-belief. There's belief in everything. But only about a year ago, I read Tony Robbins' book, Awaken the Giant Within. And I used to always think Tony was just some fluff guy who does a bunch of dancing. And I read in the book how people with split personality disorder can change their eye color based upon their belief. Have you read the book?
I have not.
And we don't believe, how could someone change their eye color? It doesn't sound scientifically possible. But how do they change the molecules and the chemistry in their brain to do that? And you can research it. It's a real thing. And then I started learning about self-belief. And self-belief is just knowing that I can do it. What is confidence? Confidence comes from the word confined. And to confine is to trust yourself. So if I trust myself, I have confidence. If I have self-belief, I have confidence. So it just comes from just like continuously working on yourself and continuously believing that you can do it. And then you provide yourself evidence along the way that you can do it.
Yeah. I have not read his book yet, but definitely watched a lot of podcasts and watched a lot of his videos. It sounds very similar. Have you read anything from Brendan Burchard in High
No,
Performance
I've
Habits?
not. I've heard really good things. I've not read his book.
Yeah, yeah. I was going through really tumultuous time in my life, and I had very high belief. I was a competitor, kickboxer, MMA fighter, um, and had some huge setbacks personally in my life, and so it was quite incredible how I had built this high level of confidence, and then it had gotten destroyed just with some personal conflict that was going on in my life, and I really needed to go back to what made me a high performer and how did those habits of high performance serve me to get that confidence back. Have you encountered a situation before where you've had a setback and you had to reframe how you even defined yourself in order to step forward?
Yeah, so around 3 or 4 years ago, I was working as a sales director in a company. And what happened was I was working at this company and I left one job to go to another. And in this job, it was just after COVID. And the company owner got me in as a sales director. I'm building this sales team. I'm running a sales team of 30 odd people. And then very quickly, they owed refunds of millions of pounds to people before COVID for products and services that they did not deliver. And me being the sales director, when I got there on the first week, I got all these complaints from customers saying, "Where is this money? You promised us this money. Where is it? We're going to take you to court." And I've gone to the founder and I've said, "We owe this money to all these customers. Are we going to give it back to them?" And the founder went, "No, we're not giving it back. It's
Wow.
mine." And he just decided he's not going to refund anyone, and he's not that person who's got integrity. So now I've just started a new job, and then I've found out I'm working for this business owner that is not full of integrity, and I now have to lie to the sales team to get them successful because the sales team need driving, and I have to get them to sell something that they are just scamming people. So then I actually left that job. I just gave notice and I just left. I just walked out. And then I don't have a job anymore. And I just left one high paid job with good commission. It was more high commission job to one sales director job. And then I've gone to the gym and now I've put all of my efforts into the gym and training and thought I'm going to do nothing but just train because I was so focused on bodybuilding and physique development. Then what happened, because I was so focused on it, I became obsessive. And then I went to the gym one day, benching 400 pounds. And I tore my pec, and I tore my pec, and then I tore my quad because I threw the 400 pounds from my pec to stop it tearing. I pushed it onto my quadriceps, and then my quad tore. So now I've gone home and I've got a torn quad, no job, a torn pec, and I can't change my bed sheets. And I live alone. And at the time, I didn't live in a very nice place. It had all damp all over the walls. And now I'm living in a place very quickly. This is only 3 or 4 years ago. And I'm
Wow.
living in an environment where I can't change my bed sheets. I can't feed myself. I don't have a job. And then there's a point where you can turn it around. And I knew there was just something that I can do to turn it around from there. And I just started just doing what I can. And eventually I opened some sports rehab clinics. I opened my consulting business, and one thing led to another, and I changed my life. But that only came from being incredibly low. So if your question is, have I had a time where I did not feel so good? I probably had many times, but that was just one. That's just one of recent.
Yeah, that must have been incredibly challenging to go through all of that and to make a decision, because your story is a lot of people's stories, but your story is not a lot of people's stories because at the same time you made a conscious decision to change your life and not to stay in those circumstances. When it comes to being a leader now, you're running the consultancy, you're networking with millionaires and people that have these multi-million-dollar companies. Is there anything as of recent maybe that you've had to unlearn as a leader that was no longer healthy for you to maintain that belief or to lead your team in that style?
Yeah, one thing I had to unlearn was when I worked at a large company, everything was hierarchical. So there was a director, manager, and then if you're a frontline worker, you can't go straight to the director. You have to go to the manager first, and then the manager will tell the next person. And there was this bureaucracy and this political environment to your company. And I had to unlearn 10, 15 years of my career because building my business, I just want everyone to just be able to talk to anyone in the office. If the video editor wants to go to the operations manager and say, hey, I don't think this is right. Can we do this? They don't have to go through me. Why would they? And if there's enough trust, and if there's and they're having a good amount of conflict, and they can hold each other accountable, and they do the 5 dysfunctional teams, if you know them, the 5 areas of dysfunctional teams by Peter Lencioni. If those are there, you don't need a horizontal format in your company. You can just have a vertical, flat company which everyone can go to each other and help each other. And that's something that I had to completely unlearn and then relearn.
That is very interesting. And have you found other organizations that are kind of following that same footprint and doing well?
A lot of organizations, a lot of large companies these days. I think Netflix has an amazing culture. They have a book about culture, and their culture is very unique. You can look at a lot of large companies on how they now run and how they don't need a hierarchy, and how anyone can just approach anyone. And this is something that I'm new to. So maybe in 2 or 3 years from now, I might switch it up. But this
Yeah.
is what I'm trying. But when you look at companies like let's say Elon Musk's companies, he can just talk to anyone in the company. He doesn't go
Right.
to a manager. He doesn't send an email that goes to an email. He'll just call the person and say, "Are we launching this rocket today?" Speed matters, and the reason why people take away speed, a lot of the reasons why hierarchies exist in companies is pay. People don't like talking about money, so everyone needs to hide from the person in another department how much they're getting paid.
Mhm.
My company, everyone knows how much money I'm making. Everyone knows how much money we've made last month, how much money came in this month. Why hide it? So it's just a different mindset. I just think if I just show everything, there's nothing to hide. I don't have to remember anything. It just becomes easy.
That's true. That's true. The truth shall set you free, right? Being able to be honest and open with your team. Let's talk to maybe the founder who has been doing sales and they're at the point where they now are the bottleneck in the organization. They need to add team, they need to add sales reps or a sales team. Maybe they think they have somebody who could potentially do sales. Is there something that they should be looking for or some steps that they should be doing to build out a successful sales team so they don't crash and burn when they're shifting from just being that person who is the front of the business?
So the first thing is, it's the belief that no one can sell better than them. The truth is, the sales rep that you hire, most likely, they won't sell better than you because it's your business. No one knows it better than you. Let's say that you sell at a 50% close rate in your business, and the sales rep that you're going to hire is going to sell at 40%. Most people won't make that trade. And the reason why I'll make that trade is the 10% loss in close rate means that I free up my time to generate so many more sales calls that it doesn't matter. But because you're not willing to let go of that 10% close rate and you believe somebody else can't close better than you, that's what stops a business from growing. A lot of the times you just have to work out what is worth it. And sometimes a sales rep comes in and does better than you can. But you have to know it's just a belief thing. And the other thing is there's a belief and then there's a practicality about how do you onboard sales reps and give them all of your knowledge. We design sales playbooks. So we don't just hire, build, and train teams. For every business that we onboard, we build them a sales playbook for their company. So then their sales rep that they've hired can very quickly learn everything they need to about the business that's essential within a certain format. And we gamify that format and we onboard sales reps and setters within that format in a gamified format to be able to absolutely learn everything that they need to learn in the onboarding process. So one thing is process driven and one thing is very mindset driven.
I love that you are actually building out individual playbooks for the sales team. That's very countercultural, I think, to a lot of the other people maybe that are in this space that are trying to also develop out sales teams. I've actually had companies that I've worked with in the past where they go, "Hey, we're going to replace a sales team member with you." And literally all that means is that this person has gone through some sort of sales training and it's very minimal. And then you've got to figure out how to develop that sales team. So what I'm understanding is that you've got a more comprehensive approach. And I think you mentioned in some of your videos that you have more of a fractional type of approach in the organization. Can you explain that and what that means exactly?
Yeah, so a lot of businesses that are over $1 million a year, they can't afford a sales director. So what do? We can place ourselves in a business and we can go from consulting them all the way to running their entire morning meetings, running the entire sales function for a company. And we're able to do that because we know what good looks like. We know what amazing sales development and sales team management looks like. So we're able to take it off the business's hands and run that sales function for them. And then what we're able to do is run it for them or teach them how to run it. And then they can just focus on marketing or focus on product, because we should all be focused on the things that feed us and give us the most energy. The things that give me energy are sales, so I focus on those. To be honest with you, I hate running ads. I don't like going into the business manager and clicking. Some people love it. I just don't like going into the ads manager every morning and dropping ads and looking at ad performance. Something about it just doesn't make me enjoy it. I also don't like writing copy, don't like writing ads. So what do? I hire people for that. And that's why great media buyers and great agencies exist. So we just outsource to the people and we hire people that can do the thing that we don't enjoy.
Yeah. And that sounds like maybe you're providing that solution in the marketplace for people that maybe just don't have the knack for building out a sales team.
Yeah, exactly.
So for you, let's say that you're building this brand, you're working as this fractional sales director, you and your team for a lot of these companies. Let's say that catastrophically something happened. You lost everything. What would be your first move that you would make to start again, to build back up?
Is this for myself or for the company that's lost everything?
For you. What would you do as an operator, as an entrepreneur? What would be your first play that you would do if you lost everything and you had to start over?
If I lost everything and start over, to be honest with you, I actually find it almost exciting. It's quite evil internally that I find it exciting how I am willing to sleep in my car if I need to, which is why, like, when you have a core belief that you can survive with your skills that you have. The absolute worst case, if I fail at everything, is I'm sleeping in my car. And that doesn't seem like a bad thing to me. Even though I have an amazing home, I have a great lifestyle, everything's nice. Even if the absolute worst case doesn't scare me, that's why I can go from a place of abundance. And then also, if I'm able to fail, if I fail, and then I'm able to pivot and I know I can sell, I know I can help businesses, I have all these skills, I can just repeat everything I know. The knowledge is still there. And this is why it's not about how much money you have, it's how much skills you have. Because the money can go up and down, but your skills can't go down. Once you have them, you have them. So I don't mind starting again ever, because you'll get it back. You'll get to the same level that you're at very quickly.
And that's the difference between someone who has only made millions and someone who knows how to keep making them. Usman, this was really powerful. Just real leadership, execution, mindset. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. And for everybody that's listening, if this episode actually hit you, go follow Usman. He's sharing content. It's going to help make you sharper. It's going to help make you more disciplined and ultimately make you more profitable. Where can they find you, Usman? Where's the best places to do that?
You can find me on Instagram, which is Usman Kayani Official. So USMANKAYANI Official. Or on YouTube, it's more educational content and broad content. It's going to be USYKAY.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We'll drop all the links in the show notes, guys. This is the Making Millions podcast. I'm Jennifer Waters, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you very much.